What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host, Caleb. If you want to support me, you can always use that TCGPlayer link in the description down below, or as always, just liking, commenting, subscribing will do the trick. Now, let's get into this Precon update. We are upgrading the Precon Hosts of Mordor. And honestly, right out of the gate, this is kind of split, right? It wants to cast a lot of spells, but also there's this big Reanimator package. So we're playing Reanimator and Spell Slingy. It's kind of split down a little, or down the middle, like all Precons are. So we're gonna, decide which one we want to do and then cut the rest of it out, which will open the door for some pretty cool upgrades. We're definitely going to take the Reanimator route. That's probably one of the more powerful ones, and it's going to synergize really well with our commander, which is another topic, right? What commander are we going to choose? We have two to choose from, but honestly, this is the only commander deck where I'm going to suggest something a little bit different. We buy the Sauron from the set as the first upgrade. This is going to be one of the best upgrades you can make to this deck. Now, I know Sauron Lord of the Rings, really cool, has a big sword, but if Dragon Ball Z has taught me anything, you never start the game at your final form. So we're going to go ahead and play Sauron instead. I know, switching Sauron for Sauron. Kind of insane. But Sauron the Dark Lord, still amazing, right? He's got protection, so that's pretty crazy. I mean, these ward abilities are honestly getting out of hand. You're going to have to sacrifice a legendary creature to go ahead and target him, or a legendary artifact, which doesn't sound crazy because of the Ring Tempts You ability, turning something into a legendary. But that's going to be niche in a year from now. That's not going to carry on into many commander decks, and no one wants to sacrifice their legendary creatures because turns out those are pretty good. So we have solid protection right out of the gate. Additionally, hey, we've got card advantage on this guy too, as long as we can deal damage with those massive armies. Which is another thing. This is basically like a Mana Gorger Hydra in the command zone. That army is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we deal damage with that army, and we can discard our hand to draw 4 cards. So we have card advantage, protection, and a growing creature in the command zone. Honestly, too, look at this guy's power. He's not small either. 7 attack. That's enough for 3 hits commander. Pretty solid. And then we can run Sauron Lord of the Rings in the 99 to come out later and really make a big splash, because honestly, having a 9-drop in the command zone is pretty telegraphed, hard to pull off, and at the end of the day, he's going to be a lot stronger in the 99. So that's exactly what we're going to do as our first upgrade. Something I should mention is this is going to roughly be a $45 upgrade, and Sauron does take up a pretty big chunk of that, but hey, he is really impactful, so that's why I justified that. Notably, at the end of the video, I will include some 2 non-budget cards that really amp the deck up if you do want to spend a little more, and this is probably going to replace 22 cards in the deck, so we're replacing a good chunk of the deck at a pretty good budget, and I'm including some non-budget options. So let's get into these synergies that we want to include to buff up our new commander, such as the Ring Tempting Us. Call of the Ring is going to be a super solid way to make sure we can consistently get our commander's ability off, and then if we're choosing new ring bearers, we get to draw some cards. Claim the Precious, a removal spell that again will trigger our commander's ability, and then we have There and Back Again. This one triggers our commander's ability, gets us a mountain, and also, Smog. And then when Smog dies, we get 14 treasure tokens, because that's a thing. Now, I don't think your opponent will let you get there, but hey, maybe they do, and then you've got 14 mana to throw at stuff, which there are some pretty big creatures in here, and we do have ways to use that mana. Now, moving on, we have Archfiend of Ifnir. Now, we are discarding a lot of cards, and if this guy sticks onto the battlefield and we can consistently trigger our commander's ability, which we can in this deck, that's going to make sure our opponent's board stays completely wiped. And remember what I said, our commander's massive. He's a 7/6. 3 turns, we're taking someone out with commander. So they can really not let that happen for very long, but also we do have Reanimator stuff. So once we get this guy, it's kind of hard for us not to run away with the game. Bone Miser. This guy does everything. Card advantage, ramp, and he creates a board state. Super solid. Luxodon Warhammer. Now, something that does trigger our commander's ability is our armies dealing damage, but honestly, they're just a big beater without trample. There is some ways to give it trample and even unblockable in the deck already, but I just wanted to add some more trample effects. Luxodon Warhammer will do that while giving us lifelink. Naginata. I don't know why that was so hard. Anyway, this one works as well. Now we have trample and +3. It's buffing its power. Also, we do have some sacrifice effects that give us value judging on the creature's power. So buffing the power, always going to be a plus. And on top of that, again, it's just a really big creature. Reel the Everwise, this one's going to make it to where whenever we discard our hand, we're going to draw that many cards on top of the 4 cards already. So that's going to be pretty solid. Tefari's Ageless Insight on top of ramping up all of the cards we are already drawing. With our commander, we're going to discard our hand, go ahead and draw 8 cards as opposed to 4, which is going to be pretty solid. The Reaver Cleaver. Now, here's another trample enabler that also gives us a ton of ramp. This one we did kind of break the budget for as well, but I don't do that lightly. This is definitely going to buff up the deck, and honestly, I've seen this card win games. It can be pretty insane if you get that equipped onto an army, or even our commander, right? This is going to make our commander have 8 power. That's going to be a menace, especially with his protection, right? They have to sacrifice a legendary artifact or a legendary creature, which, again, you don't want to do. Legendary cards turns out pretty solid. And then we have, moving on, Chainer Nightmare Adept. Chainer Nightmare Adept is just going to let us straight up cast cards from our graveyard. We can even discard cards that we don't have the mana to cast to reanimate from the graveyard. So she's pretty solid, and remember, she does enable haste. And the haste is even if we reanimate something, right? If we don't cast it, but we do reanimate it and Chainer's on the battlefield, we get haste. Super solid. Disciple of Bolas, like I said, we have ways to sacrifice our massive creatures to draw cards, and it will gain us some life. Not that, important, but hey, it's there. Dragon Mage, I like this better than the dragon they had in the deck because this is just going to draw you 7 cards consistently every turn while filling your graveyard. So we're filling that graveyard for the Reanimator strategy portion of the deck. Ruthless Technomancer, another thing we can sacrifice our giant army to create a lot of treasure tokens, and also he does reanimate things as well. So we're reanimating stuff, we're ramping, we're just adding those synergies to the deck. Mandate of Abaddon. Now, again, our commander, massive. So using Mandate of Abaddon is going to make it to where we can wipe most of the board and leave our board untouched because we are playing just massive creatures. Wheel of Misfortune, a little confusing, but honestly an amazing card. Everybody chooses a number. Whoever chooses the least number or the smallest number will not wheel. Everybody else wheels, and then whoever chose the highest number will take that amount of damage. So 3 people will wheel, and then the lowest person just keeps their hand. So if you don't want to wheel, choose 0, you'll be solid. If multiple people choose 0, those people don't wheel. So in theory, if everybody chose 0, this card does nothing and you wasted 3 mana. Pretty solid. Whispering Madness, another one. This one has that Cypher ability, so we can reliably trigger it every turn. This is going to draw us and discard us a ton of cards. Also, hey, the turn we cast it, we can basically wheel twice, right? Because we cast it, wheel, and then we attack, and that'll wheel again. And that's just feeding into our discard synergies while also filling our graveyard and getting us cards that we need into our hand, right? Pretty solid. We then added some extra ramp. They added one of the signets, but why not include all 4? This is a big deck that casts big creatures, so early ramp is going to be extremely important. So we went ahead and finished out this signet cycle with Dimir Signet, Izzet Signet, and Rakdos Signet. Super solid in the deck. I don't know why they weren't in there. So now this brings us to our 2 non-budget options. We have the Ozolith. Now, every time our army dies, we can just throw all those counters onto the Ozolith and then wait for that army to come back next turn and then throw all the counters back on it. So now it will be ready to be sacrificed again for more value, or maybe we throw it on our commander and commander damage someone out. Remember, our commander is going to be massive. This is just going to add some flexibility to those counters, making sure they're not just going to waste. But like I said, that price tag, pretty insane. And then we have Orcish Bowmaster. This is a new card, so I do expect the price to go down a little bit, but honestly not that much because this card is cracked, guys. 1 wheel effect, and let's say everybody has a full hand just for sake of argument, right? Discard 7, discard 7, discard 7. You've just made a 21-21 out of nowhere and drawn an entire new hand. So this card is insane in the deck. Additionally, hey, it is removal too because you're going to be pinging damage while you're doing that. So it's removal. It makes you a giant creature, And honestly, I think it's going to see a lot of play in a lot of decks. So like I said, don't expect the price to come down too much, but I did want to, throw it out there just in case you guys wanted to throw it in the deck and really power it up. So that's going to do it for the upgrades, guys. I'm going to leave the cuts in the pinned comment down below. That way, I don't just bore you with a bunch of cards that I think shouldn't be in the deck. And if you want my reasoning, I can tell you the reasoning. But in short, most of the cards I cut, I either cut them because I added something more efficient. So when you see I'm cutting card draw, it's because we already added more efficient card draw, or it's because it played into the other strategy of casting those instant and sorcery spells, which, like I said, this deck is kind of split down the middle. It wanted to cast instant and sorcery spells, and it also wanted to be a reanimator deck. You got to choose one and go with it. And that's what we did here. We chose the reanimator because that's the cool side of it. And then so we're going to cut everything else, like, the gutter snipe and such. That way it's not clogging up the deck, being a useless card. So, like I said, the cuts down in the pinned comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors. I'll see you in the next one.